We have the best practices and technologies for you to leverage as you roll into the new style of IT. We serve over 2,000 large enterprises around the globe, and our 120,000 services employees are energized and committed to serve you. So please come and connect with one or many of our experts in the Enterprise Services platform at the Discover Zone to learn more about what we can offer.
Ground coverage. This is John Furrier from SiliconANGLE, and I'm joined by CUBE alumni Sar Gulai, Senior Vice President, General Manager of the Business Unit for Cloud globally for HP. Welcome back, Sar. Great to have you.
Great to be here again.
I've been following your tweets and your photos and getting to view your segment. Great stuff here. You've done an amazing job with the cloud. I mean, you've now been on theCUBE multiple times. When theCUBE was first trying to figure out the cloud, you were the first guy to say, hey, this is what it looks like. And you've laid it out very cleanly. Now it's taking shape. You're running the business unit for engineering, product management, go-to-market. Give us the quick update on what's happening.
Well, we've made a lot of progress. You know, when we talked about first last year, we talked about the fact that we want to have sort of one unit at HP that covers cloud all the way from consume to build, was management, and that's really what we've been doing. And so, we've made a ton of progress. If you look at our contributions, we talked about OpenStack, we released CloudOS, so we sort of now have that moving. One of the other things we did is, we want to make cloud easier for our customers to consume, and so we've built our separate go-to-market organization that handles cloud. So if there's an engagement around cloud, we'll send the cloud journey architect over, and he will work with the customer and figure out what the right solution is. From an engineering side, we now have all the core technology under one business unit, right, that builds the whole core technology both for the public cloud and the private cloud and to be adopted by demand's cloud all in one place, because that helps us create this sort of one consistent architecture for cloud, whether it's public, private, or managed.
You guys done an amazing job. I got to give you some props on this, because when I was very critical of HP's cloud early on. As you remember, our first couple interviews, it just wasn't coherent. It was kind of all over the place. You're like, calm down, settle down. I mean, the good news was OpenStack was a great spot for you guys. You guys had good beachhead in OpenStack, and you guys developed that nicely. I want you to, and now, right now, you got cloud in a really good position. So I want you to go back and take me through the play-by-play, to some extent, shortened version of how your execution got here. Specifically, you can't just get to a good position. You guys really worked hard. You cleaned up the story, but take us through some of the execution on the product side and the engineering side.
Sure. Well, it all starts first of all with support from Meg. So when I took over 15 months ago, at that time we had a good strategy. The converged cloud strategy was there, and we had a bunch of products. The problem is it was all very siloed. And Meg had realized that, and everybody had realized it, but they're trying to figure out, okay, what is the best way to move forward? And we had, Mark Potts, who's the CTO for cloud, had come up with a strategy, but we were having execution challenges. And so the first thing we wanted to do is say, okay, well, where are the problems, right? And so we saw there were two challenges. One challenge was that, again, all the engineering was siloed. And even if people had the right motivation, it's very hard, especially in a business unit, to focus on sort of the long-term stuff, because they're always meeting quarter to quarter. And the other problem we had in the go-to-market was that the go-to-market was very siloed as well. And so one of the things you want to do in cloud is when you come to a customer, if it was the private cloud guy, that was the solution. If it was the public cloud guy, that was the solution. But that's not what you want to do. You want to find out what the problem is. So
you're competing with each other. Everyone's competing with each other internally.
Yeah, exactly. And the customer shouldn't care about the internals of the company, right? That's the first thing. And so basically, I went back and looked at all this, did some analysis, met with a lot of people, and everybody knew it was the right thing to do, but it's a question of how do you actually do it. And we put together a plan that said, look, we're going to start consolidating the engineering. The first thing we did is we took part of the CloudOS development, which was under software, and George, was kind enough to move that under the cloud organization so we can build a core. Right, then we started working with the private cloud guys that are working on cloud systems. We said, okay, you guys can continue doing that, but eventually you got to move to this architecture. At the same time, right, we pulled in the public cloud group under the same organization, because really it's supposed to be the same thing. Yeah. Now in parallel to all this, we started charting out how we're going to consolidate the sales team and create an overlay sales group. And so over the last 12 months, this is a big company, we've been sort of charting the path, but we told people from the beginning, this is what we're going to do. It's just there's a time for everything. For example, you don't mess around with the sales team during a fiscal year. So we didn't consolidate the sales team until we switched to the new year.
Yeah, on November 1st,
now,
right?
In parallel to that, we brought in a lot of talent, right? One of the things that I wanted to build was a very high-level product management team to cover all cloud, as opposed to having it siloed, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to product management. And so I got Bill Hilth. I managed to convince Bill Hilth, who was one of the GMs of Azure, to come over. And one of the things that sold him is, he agreed that really the open source is going to win. And that was one of the big selling points. He said, Bill, you've been in open source before, this is going to win, you want to go do OpenStack. So we got that in place. We brought Kerry Bailey to help on the sales. He had done in Terramark, and so we slowly built this up, but it all started with, us putting a plan and Meg supporting it. And then in June, we went to the board and said, look, we want to increase the investment dramatically. And because we had managed to execute on the sales side, they supported us.
Beautiful. That's fantastic execution. And now Martin Fink, who came over from HP Labs, who's also a CUBE alumni. I thought we're going to interview all the execs. Meg, if you're watching this, you're going to come on theCUBE. I'm going to get Meg Whitman. She's going to come on theCUBE with us. I was impressed, in knowing about Meg Whitman. She's not a super technical person, although she's, super smart about where the action is. Got a lot of good guys around. You're one of them. George Kadifa, you mentioned a bunch of other guys. You have a good team. So not surprising the investment. So let's talk about the investment. So Martin Fink comes in. He kind of takes over to look over the store. He's going to really be doing a lot of lab stuff. That's a good thing. More investment. Meg talked about that. What's the big going forward piece? And I want to get your perspective on OpenStack. I want to, get to hear. Are you guys still committed to OpenStack? And are you going to be the key anchor? Linux had IBM. They put $1 billion down. Right now, OpenStack needs a leader. Is that going to be HP?
So let me put it to you this way. We're all in on OpenStack. We were supporting OpenStack from day one, and so far we've been proven to be correct. I'm not going to show our hands, but I would just say that the level of investment that we're putting in is going to surprise people dramatically. And not everything that we're doing is clear yet, but it will become clearer over time.
Yeah.
And when I mean over time, I mean in the next 12 months, not in the next 12 years, because cloud is a monthly thing, not a yearly thing. Now, I think what's really important in OpenStack right now is to move from a developer focus to a customer focus.
Yeah, customers that I talk to and we hear from talk about flexibility. It's the number one thing they need, and they want OpenStack to be that for them. Right now, OpenStack to us seems a little lost. It's a headless leader. I know Rackspace is in there. Love you over there, Rackspace. we love you, but you don't have the mojo on the software side. They're hardware guys. I know HP is too, but they're hosting guys. IBM really made Linux work. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other market forces that kind of...
From a marketing perspective, they did a great job.
Well, HP was kind of forcing with HP UX on the other side.
Yeah, we were the first people to indemnify Linux, just to be record, right? Martin Fink, thank you very much.
And Sun on the other side, too. Well, yeah, I was there. I'm a witness that whole movement. But there was other forces going on. Obviously, the open source was under threat, so Linux had to come together. OpenStack is under the same thing. There's a lot of solidarity in OpenStack right now. And Amazon is clearly washing into the enterprise. Mm-hmm. That wave is coming in. We're at reInvent, and you're hearing things like VDI, Kinesis, Redshift. These are compelling integrated stack technologies, and the enterprises will do stuff with Amazon. How deep Amazon will go into the enterprise, that's still going to be a question. So that's a force that, I think is going to accelerate the OpenStack piece a bit, don't you?
I think, look, first of all, I think the fact that, cloud now is under Martin Fink should be very telling to anybody who's trying to read the tea leaves, because Martin Fink, right, has a long history in open source and Linux. He literally wrote the book on open source, so, that should give some people some indication of where our head's at. Okay. Taking one of the top people in the industry and putting him in charge, putting cloud underneath him. So I think that should be a good indication. Look, Amazon, all the power to them. I think they've done a great job in the first wave of cloud, but the first wave of cloud is a small wave compared to the rest of the waves that are coming. And the problem is this, right? If you look at all of Amazon's investment, there are more people working on OpenStack than in Amazon. So Amazon may be ahead, but if you look at the curve, our slope is better. Well, and Solaris was really good too, but then one morning Linux came along. And while it took a while for Linux to go over Solaris today, nobody even talks about it that way. Yeah. And the one thing I think is really interesting is I think OpenStack is doing in a few years what it took a decade for Linux to do. Now, there's a lot of things we still got to do, but when I talk to customers today, it's amazing compared to last year. People were interested. Everybody's piloting something. Everybody knows they're piloting. They understand.
It's got a lot of white spaces. People are excited. I mean, first of all, we cover OpenStack some with theCUBE. You know, we were there last year. We're going to continue to be there. But I want to get your take on this first wave and the second waves and the bigger waves are coming. The guys that are surfing the waves are developers and applications in the enterprise. So the enterprise is a completely different set of surfers, if you will, surfing those waves, workload requirements, compliance. What's your vision of that? Okay, and by the way, no disagreement, open source wins. It's about freedom, and that's what it's all about, not just freedom, to quote George Kadifa. What is good? What do those apps look like? How do you see around the corner there? What's coming next for those developers? If wave one was Amazon, and as you said, small.
Wave one was low-hanging fruit. Okay, it's low-hanging fruit, which is things that are very easy to move to cloud in terms of it's a good fit. The SLA requirements are not as significant. The security requirements aren't significant. There's always the first wave, and again, I think it's great. But if you look at the entire, again, average enterprise, 5,000 apps, how many are actually running on a public cloud? I think the second wave is hybrid. And I know they're shocked that I'm saying that, but
who's shocked?
I'm kidding. But
yeah, no.
I know it's shocking that I say that, but I think the second wave is hybrid because the good thing that's been happening over the last year is people realize, look, it's not about this versus that. It's about being able to do both. Okay.
So let's talk about DevOps 2.0, because really at the end of the day, that's where it's going, right? DevOps was, to me, Amazon. A lot of guys who do DevOps love Amazon, especially the developers. But when you get to see more things like Facebook, and we're going to hear Facebook come on stage shortly with George Kadifa's keynote, talking about Vertica and the success they've had with HP and HP Cloud. The DevOps 2.0 is the enterprise.
Correct.
Where it's easier and more available. But what's your take on that, DevOps 2.0? That's a pretty big wave.
Look, I think when you talk, the interesting thing about DevOps is like cloud, right? Everyone's talking about it, but it's like certain things that people had in high school, right? Everyone's talking about the things someone else is doing. I think DevOps, look.
Teenage sex is the quote. That's
you said
Gartner
it, I
analyst.
didn't,
Gartner
but,
analyst.
You've been through it. I think, look, the good news is I think that it's all about agility, and so DevOps makes sense to get to agility. We talked about this in my keynote here in terms of, if it takes you 8 months to figure out if what you're building is correct or not, that's probably not a cloud agility, right? You're iterating. DevOps is all about iterating. And I think that the enterprise is starting to adopt that, but it's going to take time because DevOps itself will have to change to make that work.
Well, I would agree with you, and in fact, I would say Dave and I's definition of DevOps is guys who eat glass and spit out nails. So let's talk about Facebook, for instance. Developers that have more developers to admin ratios. They might be hosting on bare metal. And so the enterprise, that's a unique brand. Hyperscale, that's a small black swan kind of market.
That's right.
So I totally agree with that. So DevOps 2.0, let me call it Cloud Ops.
Okay.
Maybe it's enterprise, guys who want to be Superman. I want to be a DevOps when I grow up. I talk to people in the enterprise, there's not a lot of DevOps qualified people. They're mostly guys, I run the DBA for Oracle,
That's right.
I do this admin for NetApp Gear, I do this over here for email on EMC Symmetrics, I got my HP 3PAR over here, and I got my servers over here. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now it's coming to DevOps to me means, how do you make those guys more productive for the programmers, the software developers?
Well, I think, again, a lot of those guys you just talked about are working in ITIL shops. Okay, so if you're working in an ITIL shop, it's very regimented, and that's fine, and that's good for the old world, and there's nothing wrong with the old world. It's just that the new apps are not going to be written in the old world because it's too slow. So when you look at DevOps, you're going to see the emergence of this in the new world, and there's going to be a migration over time. Because anyone who's building new apps doesn't have that.
That's a multi-year journey. Wouldn't you agree? 5 years?
I think that it's
3
a
to
multi-year journey, but I think
from
that
ITIL to new.
It's not so much a journey in terms of it's going to be a balance. Over time, more and more is going to be here, and I think the ITIL stuff will still be around, but there won't be any big development happening there. So the question is, where's the development going to be? The development's going to be in the new area. The old area is still going to be there, but over time, percentage-wise, there'll be a lot less happening there.
Great.
And that's okay, because like I said, the difference in enterprise is enterprise has installed base, right? That's the difference in consumer and enterprise. You can't just all say, you know what, everything that happened before doesn't matter anymore. That's not how enterprise works. And so that's one of the reasons we support hybrid. And the same is going to happen in DevOps. You're going to have leakage of DevOps concepts through new apps, and over time, DevOps will adopt it. I think one of the things that I think is very interesting, if you look at how Google does it, right? Google have a separate team called SREs who are actually doing that. And I think that's a really interesting concept. I think some of what they're doing over there is going to leak into the enterprise. because I don't know that every designer, right, wants to be doing the ops part, and I don't know how it scales in the enterprise. So I think, there's a lot to be developed. I mean, it's early.
What's your critical success factors this year? And you're running the business unit for cloud globally, which is the engineering, product management, go-to-market, market development.
Engineering, product management,
and
go-to-market's under Carrie.
You
Thank
got some
God,
market,
because I have big expectations for that.
But you must have some product marketing, market development.
No, product marketing, but it doesn't matter. Me and Carrie are partners, so I'm responsible for the sales as well in terms of we have to deliver a number.
So you're writing the product requirements. So you're writing the PRDs, your team, right? So Carrie sells the product.
Yes.
She sells it.
He has everything he needs to be successful.
What are your goals for the next 6 months?
Look, as I mentioned to you before, right, we have 2 goals. I can't get into revenue goals, but we obviously have very high growth goals in terms of just overall and then also in terms of hybrid. But, we intend to make OpenStack much more dominant in the industry, and that's going to help everybody, and we intend to be part of it. And so just the maturity of OpenStack in the industry is a big goal for HP because it's going to benefit us and others as well.
I mean, you guys don't get the props. You and I both talked about this at OpenStack Summit. You guys don't get the props that you guys were founding members of OpenStack, big part of funding it, contributing resources, going back to incorporation.
Yeah, we're still running with the CI/CD chain for all, right? It was Monty Taylor. We're still doing that. And look, the way I would this is what I would leave you to think about in terms of OpenStack. In the cloud, and we talked about this in the past, right? You're going to make money in many different places. If there's companies who think they're going to make all their money in OpenStack and only there, I think they're going to have a business model problem against HP. So good luck with that.
Sar, great to have you on theCUBE. Obviously, I know your time's tight. We got the keynote to go, and George Kadifa coming up with some special presentation. Facebook's going to come out. It's going to be fantastic. The final question, true or false, the HP cloud is built on OpenStack?
Absolutely.
That's true, 100%.
Absolutely true.
100%.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
What else would it be built on?
I just want to get down the record because it's been kicked around from multiple people. Great job, great team. You guys are gearing up. Congratulations on going to the board for the big investment. Doubling down on OpenStack is awesome. The community is growing fast. You're seeing VMware making some moves with Mirantis. Got some competition out there. A lot of differentiation going to happen in the next couple months.
Well, one thing on VMware, just let me mention one thing, right? I mean, look, there's a place for VMware. A lot of the customers I talk to saying, look, I have my VMware cloud. I love it, have it. Let's keep it here. Let's build an OpenStack cloud and let's move things over time. And that's fine, that's good, it's all good.
Let me ask you about General Electric. They have the pivotal relationship. Does that affect how you guys look at them? I mean, they'd be a great person to partner with. Certainly they have all that medical equipment, which is in the heritage of HP.
I think, look, I think the PaaS area is very interesting. I think one of the questions, and we do work with Cloud Foundry, we have our stuff there, but I think the question is, are we at the level in PaaS yet relative to where there's a dominant solution, or there's going to be a bunch of different ones? I don't think yet we're in a place where there's going to be a dominant one. So I think there's going to be a bunch of different ones, and they're going to be somewhat verticalized, so on. So I think, Pivotal, I think they're doing some interesting things. I think we're going to be seeing some really interesting developments in PaaS over the next year.
Well, we're excited to have you on theCUBE, and as a friend of theCUBE, we'll always keep in touch and keep you up to date on what we're doing, and also hear from you and what's happening with the cloud. Great to see HP making their breakout moves, a year of execution under your leadership. Congratulations. Can't wait to hear about the OpenStack news. Make sure you get to us before you break it so we can get out front. Of course, we'll see you at OpenStack Summit. Did you go to Singapore?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong? We couldn't make that one.
I was in Hong Kong.
Just a quick 2 seconds on what happened there. What was the big news?
Look, the big news is, again, a lot more discussion about customers and a lot less discussion about technology, and that's important because, as you know, at the end of the day, OpenStack success is going to be defined by applications, workloads, people using it. That's what's going to define the success, right? And I think we can see already in Hong Kong, you can see the shift to that.
So it looks like we crossed the chasm of cloud, don't you think? Finally here?
I believe so.
We'd love to talk.
Right.
Cloud washing is gone. Now it's software-defined data center washing. This is the year for that. Cloud's reality. Congratulations.
You know my pets versus cattle analogy, right?
No, share it.
Virtualization, right? The way you know if you have a real cloud, if you have servers that have names, so if a server goes down, you take care of it, that's like a pet, right? It's like, because it's a Fido, you have a name. If you have servers that are a herd of cattle, right? Just a herd supplying resources, that's cloud.
Yeah.
I would argue, VMware, they cater to pets, and I think a lot of applications are running on pets. That's okay.
Hey,
But
look at Chia Pets, very popular around the holidays, you know? Sar, great to have you on theCUBE. Good luck, and we'll be talking. This is theCUBE live from Barcelona, Spain. This is HP Discover exclusive SiliconANGLE. We keep on theCUBE. We'll be right back with our next guest after the keynote with George Kadifa, and Vertic will be right back.
Thank you. Great.
Terabyte than legacy data warehouses. Blazingly fast analytics, 50 times to 100 times faster performance, and simplified deployment. When it comes to big data, HP Labs is second to none. We're leveraging Haven technologies and research at scale to create new innovations and pioneer new areas, such as predictive analytics at extreme scale, Haven developer tools, and 3D visualization. But the core benefit of Haven is that it's more than just HP. We have a vibrant partner ecosystem building and apps on Haven, with coverage across multiple functional areas and industries. Many of these world-class partners are here with us today in Barcelona, and I invite you to visit them at the Software Pavilion to see their demos in action. Lastly, we want to do business with you in the most user-friendly way possible. We are providing new online resources and making it easy to try and buy our products through the web. We have upgraded our web presence. hp.com/software is now the destination.
Helps you get stuff done.
We just launched 5 HP products on Pronk.com. We have Service Anywhere, Agile Manager, Performance Anywhere, Fortify On Demand, and Vertica. And we'll be rapidly adding more. With Pronk, practitioners get productive quickly. They can download a free trial in minutes or buy a product with a credit card using a friendly, intuitive user interface. I've talked enough today. What's more exciting, clearly, is to hear from one of you. So I invited a special guest to discuss how the world's largest social network and one of the largest social analytics companies is leveraging big data.
Millions of people come to Facebook every day to stay connected with their friends and family and to discover what's going on in the world around them, to share and express what matters to them and to the people they care about. Since inception at Harvard University in 2004, Facebook has become the world's largest social network with over 1.1 billion active monthly users, 150 billion friend connections, and over 800 million mobile users, and a database exceeding 200 petabytes. Now that's 10 to the 15th. 1 petabyte equals 1,000 terabytes. Every day, Facebook users make 4 billion likes and comments, over 50,000 every second, upload 400 million new photos and videos, and add more than 500 terabytes to the largest database of personal information in human history. The data that users share in every second of every day make Facebook the social nervous system of our planet.
I would like to welcome Tim Campos, CIO of Facebook. Hi, Tim. How are you doing? Please. Tim, we're really thrilled to have you with us today.
I'm excited to be here. You look great.
Thank you, and thank you for traveling from Silicon Valley all the way to Barcelona.
I even brought a tie, but I have a couple members of my team here, and I decided that if I wore this, I would never hear the end of it back at work, so it's just going to sit here to honor.
Okay, I might steal it. Well, Tim, you've obviously accomplished a lot at Facebook, and clearly rely on a lot of big data to build, to run, to innovate, and to power the world's largest social network. What exactly are you doing? I'm sure a lot of people are curious about it here. And also, how are you leveraging HP Vertica in what you do?
So first off, I'm excited to be here today to talk about that. Let me set a little bit of context. So Facebook is you guys talk about next generation businesses, next generation IT organizations. The way that we see the world, we have moved from the industrial age to the knowledge economy, and Facebook is a knowledge-based enterprise. So specifically what that means is that the core asset, the value of the company is the thoughts and ideas that come from our workforce. And the lifeblood of a knowledge-based company is data. It's my job to feed our workforce with the information and the analytics to help them make decisions, to help us make the product better, to help us make the experience better for our users, and to help make our advertisers successful on Facebook. To do this, you really have to understand what data assets you have. And so I've got a question for you. Do you think you know what Facebook's core data asset is?
Let me see. Is it users and likes or connections?
That's exactly right. It's relationships. Okay. So let me show our audience here what we're talking about. So this is a map of the Facebook user base, and it's a very interesting map, especially when you understand how it's built. This is basically a giant query on the system. So each point of light, each white dot here, is representative of a user and their location, their latitude and their longitude. There is no backdrop geography here. The geography that you see...
So there is no map when you start the...
There is no map. What you're seeing are people. And the lines that connect them are the relationships between those people. And this, in fact, is what we are. Facebook is a database of relationships. Relationships of people and their friends. Relationships between comments and those who like it. Relationships between brands and their fans. Relationships between a location and the check-ins. Almost everything that occurs on Facebook is about the relationships. And the relationships are how we derive insights and knowledge about what's going on with the site. And those insights are what we use to make our product better, to make our advertisers more successful, to drive the business, to drive revenue, and ultimately to help make the company successful. Vertica is a key part of our overall analytics infrastructure that helps us to accomplish that.
Great. I see like a huge black dot there. What is that?
So there are some areas which are not illuminated. And first off, the mission of the company is to make the world more open and connected. It's our goal to try to connect everyone on the planet, to help them gain insight from each other, to learn from each other, because at the end of the day, humans are inherently social beings. We don't get anything done in isolation, but we do amazing things together. So that you can see, we still have work to do. There's areas of the world that are not yet connected. We don't have presence yet in China. And there are, there's about 2.2 billion internet-connected users in the world. That's defined by people who have PCs. Right. When you look, there's 7 billion people on the planet, Many of them have cellular phones and have means of connection that way as well. So our next focus is actually through our foundation, internet.org, to connect the next 3 billion users on the planet to hopefully illuminate more of that map.
So hopefully next year we'll see more of these dots.
Absolutely, I'm sure you will.
Great, great. So Tim, this, to me, this summarizes basically
Okay, we're live here in VMworld 2013. This is SiliconANGLE and Wikibon's theCUBE, our flagship program. We go out to the events, extract the signal from the noise. I'm John Furrier, the founder of SiliconANGLE. I'm joined with my co-host Dave Vellante from wikibon.org, co-founder. Dave runs the free open source research group Wikibon. Go to wikibon.org for all the free research, and go to siliconangle.com for all the tech news covering around cloud, mobile, and social. But we're here live in San Francisco, California for 3 days of wall-to-wall coverage for VMworld 2013. Dave Vellante and I have been here now, what, our 4th year doing VMworld here in this spot in Moscone South 4 years ago. theCUBE came to VMworld. Paul Maritz laid out at that time the architecture for what we called the software mainframe, Dave. But this year, a lot of action. We're here live in Moscone for 3 days of VMworld coverage, so stay tuned, stay with us for 3 full days, and we're going to be here interviewing all the thought leaders, CEOs, experts, partners, companies, entrepreneurs, bloggers, influencers, to get the signal from the noise here, what's going on in the enterprise. And also we've added a new feature this year. Go to crowdchat.net. crowdchat.net/VMworld and participate in our thought leader community where we'll be documenting live the transcript. It's live tweeting, also live to LinkedIn, where all the thought leaders will curate the best content here at the show live and becomes the official transcript of record for VMworld from SiliconANGLE and Wikibon. Dave, we're in Moscone, San Francisco. The theme this year, as we were talking yesterday, and then the Wall Street Journal actually penned a story, almost the exact same story we were talking about on the phone yesterday, about change. The industry is going through massive change. You're seeing really massive disruption. The transformation that we've been talking about for 3 years is actually happening. You're seeing big companies like HP having a tough performance, changing management, executive management, IBM shifting their gears and turning that ship. And obviously the big news this past week is Microsoft has announced that Steve Ballmer will be stepping down and resigning in the next 12 months. This is proof positive that transformation is happening. This change is affecting everybody. And it's about the cloud, it's about new economics, it's about the modern era. This is stuff that we've been talking about.
Well, it's kind of ironic, John. The theme of the show here is defy convention, and VMware's gone mainstream. I mean, it's the heart of IT right now, so in a lot of ways it's becoming convention. Even though I think what VMware's doing is celebrating 10 years of innovation that really has disrupted the old client server. Pat Gelsinger said today in his keynote that data centers of today are the museums of the IT past, talking about the glass house and the raised floors and so forth. But the reality is that we are entering a new era. VMware's sweet spot, of course, is the core infrastructure. They've made some announcements today to shore that up, but the big looming battle, John, the convention defiers are all about cloud, and VMware is playing its hand with what it calls true hybrid cloud, compatibility across networking, across the hypervisor, across security, across policy and GRC, et cetera. And that's, like you say, the new battleground that VMware is putting forth.
Yeah, and the 10 years of celebration really is ironic at the same time, interesting because 10 years is a decade, seems like a long time, and a lot has happened in the past 10 years, the rise and fall of Microsoft in terms of some of what things they've done. You've seen in the evolution of truly the cloud, right? You look, if you go back, even within that decade, you saw the iPhone hit the scene, that changed the whole application landscape. Amazon has absolutely set the standard for disruption and innovation at the same time. That to me is ultimately the main force that we're seeing at the cloud. And that modern era, Dave, you talk about the museum of IT, that glass house, data center mentality, those infrastructures are morphing and continue to change at a pace we've never seen before. And the thing that I want to point out is that this show now, this year, 10 years, it's a whole new VMware. Pivotal was spun out, Paul Maritz left VMware and is now running Pivotal, which is more of a big data, application-centric software developer mindset. And VMware with the leader, Pat Gelsinger, CUBE alumni, has been on many times. We'll have him on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. First thing, so look for that, is leading the charge. And VMware is a cloud company. They are an infrastructure company, and all this commoditization at the infrastructure layer and the development of platforms is grounded, as we always said, Dave, in software. So this 10-year mark, defying convention, really is about thinking differently. I mean, I think if they could use that phrase and didn't want to copy Apple, I think that that's what VMware is trying to do, and thinking differently and defying conventions about software, moving up the stack, where applications are driving the standards. And if you remember, I asked Pat Gelsinger at EMC World like 3 years ago, which comes first, the applications or the infrastructure? Which drives the innovation? It's clear that the applications are now driving that standard. The data centers are no longer telling the applications what to do, the applications are telling the infrastructure what to do. That is driven by virtualization, that is driven by software, and that cloud is the expandable, extensible infrastructure. That is a done deal. Now it's who's going to do what?
Well, what's interesting to me, John, so VMware's got a three-front war going on, right? War / opportunity. So the first one is, of course, their core infrastructure business. A lot of talk about Amazon coming after that, but more specifically OpenStack. And of course, the second, you hear a lot of talk within VMware circles about cloud, mobile, social, and big data. The first time I ever heard those four terms tied together was many, many years ago. You used them. And now everybody uses them, and it's a fundamental part of strategic plans for a lot of IT vendors. And I think specifically, a lot of people ask, why is VMware even in that end user computing space? And I think it's because it's got to have a mobile play. A lot of people think it's maybe takes them a little bit off their core focus, but nonetheless, there's a big part of their $50 billion TAM is going beyond the PC era. And then of course, the big prize is the cloud. And VMware's clearly playing its hand. It announced its vCloud hybrid cloud service today. It's sort of unveiled it last January at the financial analyst meeting, but it's GA now. It had up on the stage today, it had Citi, GE, and eBay as customer references for their networking virtualization piece. So what we're looking for now is, okay, who are the references for the vCloud hybrid service? Proof points. That's really what it's all about here.
Before we get into the Pat Gelsinger keynote analysis, I want to just say to the folks out there, if you're watching and you're not at the show, go to crowdchat.net. We're putting questions up there. All the thought leaders are going to be weighing in. Get your voice registered on the record. A couple questions out there that I want to highlight is that we're going to ask on theCUBE this week is, one, is cloud open source software a standalone market, or will it be embedded in hardware in the new cloud model? And do customers care, Dave, if software is embedded in hardware? That's a question. Go to the crowdchat.net/VMworld, weigh in on that. That's a question we're going to be following heavily. And then the other question at the top is how does VMware grow in the market without poisoning their ecosystem? Lots of questions from partners. We will ask this on theCUBE this week on SiliconANGLE.com. Those two questions, Dave. Open source software, obviously is going to continue to grow and expand, but is it a standalone install model? Will it be bundled with hardware? These are the kind of questions that customers want to know, and functionality ultimately might win. So with all that, and with the ecosystem, what is Pat Gelsinger saying on the keynote? What's your analysis from the keynote?
So Pat basically spent some time today talking about the whole OpenStack piece. Let me just say, David Furrier and Stu Miniman at Wikibon just released a piece of research, and one of the questions they asked is essentially who's going open, who's going dogmatic open source versus how many customers are willing to risk lock-in to get simplicity and function. And about half the customers said the latter. We'll take the risk of lock-in, we want simplicity and function. And only about 15% said we're going to be dogmatic about open source. So it's early days for OpenStack, but nonetheless, Pat Gelsinger said today, we're embracing OpenStack, we're going multi-hypervisor. We see that many of our customers want the single solution, but many others want this open source movement, so we're going to go there. So, I think VMware's being smart, John. I think it saw the potential threat that OpenStack provided. And the big difference today between large companies and those of 10 to 15 years ago is large companies today respond much more quickly. They don't stick their head in the sand when they see a threat. they try to embrace that threat and then co-opt it, essentially.
So one of the big stories this week will be the ecosystem. Obviously, as with all this change theme, obviously we talked about the change in the industry, VMware's positioning themselves for the cloud and the enterprise cloud. Dave, obviously the ecosystem has been a big part of VMware over the past 5 years. I mean, before that is really the hypervisor, huge penetration in the enterprise, but the past 5 years has been about VMware being a platform for the enterprise. The hypervisor is now becoming commoditized. What is your take on this ecosystem opportunity for VMware? Obviously, you got to either embed it all in or be decoupled and let the ecosystem do its thing. There's a lot of poisoning potential conversations about VMware. It's a delicate balance. What's your take on it?
Well, I think you're right, this is a delicate balance. VMware is walking a fine line, and of course, the EMC has this federation, right? And VMware made announcements today, both with Pivotal and within Cloud Foundry being available on the vCloud hybrid service, as well as EMC with the virtual SAN, the vSAN. So you're seeing two federation partners now front and center in the major announcement mojo. But as well, Pat made a big point of putting up all the logo slides of the ecosystem, and you had everybody on there, certainly Cisco and NetApp and HP and IBM and all the other culprits. Fusion.io was up there. But we spent a lot of time this morning hearing about NSX, essentially the Nicira with a little bit of VMware organic stuff thrown in, essentially moving from compute virtualization to network virtualization. So bringing in a layer, an abstraction layer, across the networking component, really going at the heart of the business of one of VMware's major partners, and of course that's Cisco.
So what do you think about the VMware opportunity here? What are we going to hear this week, do you think, from VMware? Obviously the ecosystem is going to be one message, but also how they put their solutions together. The enterprises want function. Open source has been a big part of it. We've heard Pat Gelsinger's view on Hadoop. He said there'll be no Red Hat for Hadoop. Everyone has their own distributions. There's an argument that standalone software, open source software, is not a viable market. And obviously Hortonworks, Cloudera are betting on that, but with the mission towards functionality, this might be a wind shift, a sea change for some of the enterprise vendors. And again, this might be an interesting thing for HP, whose earnings were impacted by server storage and networking performance this quarter. What's your take on that?
I'll give you my take, and I want to get yours. The competitive dynamic is very interesting here, John. You got we're at the 10th anniversary of VMworld. It's a 15-year-old company. It's a $5 billion company with a $38 billion market cap. So it's a substantial player in the market space. Its goal is to virtualize the 100% of the applications on the planet. You mentioned earlier, John, the software mainframe. Essentially, VMware is doing just that. It's building out the software mainframe, virtualizing compute, storage, and networking, and ultimately apps, building in security. The big difference, of course, is the external cloud. But so VMware sees a $50 billion total available market, and it's going after that market, and the way it wants to attack that market is to essentially be the best at core infrastructure. It's an infrastructure software company at heart, and it has to stay ahead of companies like Microsoft and obviously now OpenStack in that core infrastructure service. So its play there is to have more function, more integration sooner in the marketplace than anybody else. The second play there, obviously, as I talked about before, is end user computing. It's got to have a mobile play, and then of course the third is the big cloud play. So I think that you're going to hear about those three things. You're going to hear a lot of proof points in the core infrastructure. I mean, that is VMware's sweet spot. I think you're going to see more and more on NSX now, the networking piece. That's a big opportunity for VMware to disrupt networking infrastructure the same way it disrupted compute. And of course, storage is a little bit more interesting, John, because storage is both complex, so it's really, really hard. It's disrupted by virtualization in a big way, and the EMC factor. So you've got this ecosystem play going on. So that's a little fuzzier in terms of how the ecosystem evolves. David Furrier calls it a cartel. We saw the cartel slide go up this morning when Pat was talking about storage. It was all the large storage players, the large established storage players, the little innovators sort of, according to Furrier, get blocked out. Even Oracle just recently got the SDK for VAI and VASA. So the ecosystem piece is critical, and as you said before, VMware has to walk a very fine line. And of course the final piece is cloud. That to me is the big disruptive threat, and it's the big opportunity. But I'd love to get your take on sort of those three areas and your take on VMware in general.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I think one of the things I'm watching and I've been studying deeply is obviously the shift towards software-defined data center, and something that we've been talking about since last year when the Nicira acquisition happened. And ultimately, to me, it's all about the future of the data center. And the data center is the end point for all the companies competing for these large enterprise dollars. You know, in Silicon Valley and these tech centers where there's a lot of new technology and emerging technology, most of the big IT enterprises are slower moving and want support, and so there's a balance between innovation and functionality. So I'm really watching the hype factor on software-defined data center, but more importantly, what's going to be the leading indicator for the reality of the software-defined data center? Is it going to be storage-led, or is it going to be networking-led? Certainly the servers are going to continue to be deployed in the cloud. You're going to see flash integration in the servers, but to me the real enabler, Dave, is going to be the action at the storage or networking level. Software-defined networking is obviously moving fast. You see NSX announcement here coming in with VMware. That's going to be a big thing. We're going to watch how that plays out. Is it going to be an underlay or overlaid network? Are they separate? Are they together? Those are big strategic questions for VMware, so we're watching that. Storage, software-defined storage. We'll hear from NetApp, EMC, others. That's a big push. And all this sits within the fabric of the data layer. So again, to break that down is that the software-defined data center is a destination. It's being marketed heavily. Large enterprises are moving to the cloud, and that's what it's all about here for me. And what does EMC do? What does NetApp do? What does HP do? And how does VMware deal with their frenemies, their friends and enemies at the same time?
So I think you're right on about this notion of storage and networking. So little levers can move big stones, right, as they say. And so you saw the Nicira acquisition, even though it was a $1 billion plus acquisition, but also VMware made an acquisition of a company called Versto earlier this year. So you've got, in NSX and Nicira, you now got the networking lever, and VMware building out its storage virtualization. So essentially what it's doing is it's co-opting the layer that is the control layer for, it's got compute, now it's going after networking and storage, and it wants to layer an automation and management component over that.
Yeah, the other thing we're watching is the ecosystem of startups. Startups, as we always like to look at, is the indicator of where the innovation is. And as we always talk about, innovation is what make technologies companies stay differentiated and stay ahead of the game. And ultimately, the bets are being made. We're going to have Jerry Chen on from Greylock. He's a new partner at Greylock, general partner. He was a VMware executive. He did ESX, he did a lot of things at VMware. We're going to get his perspective. But the thing that I'm watching is, are the bets already made in the enterprise? Okay, so that's one area we're going to look at. Any new opportunities, white spaces for startups. Two, does age matter? I mean, just on Facebook today, I was commenting to a post written by the CEO of Box.net, and it was just kind of like, an analysis of Microsoft. He's 28 years old. Windows 95 was taking the industry time storm when he was winning science fairs in elementary school. And so, but this new blood of CEOs are coming in. Is that viable in the enterprise? Can the young CEOs be the new guard in the enterprise, or does experience matter, Dave? These are real questions that investors want to know, that customers want to know.
Well, I got to ask you, John. So Ballmer he's been with Microsoft for 3 decades. He was a CEO for what? Well over a decade, about 10, 12 years. Let me ask you, did Ballmer do a good job in his tenure?
Absolutely. Steve Ballmer was obviously one of the founders of Microsoft, the early days, and when Bill Gates stepped down, that was really, to me, part of fatigue. And as I did compliment the post by Aaron Levy, the young CEO at Box, was, and we've talked about this on theCUBE, after the DOJ neutered Microsoft, it really took the soul of Microsoft away, and since then, they just haven't been the competitive engine that they once were, or monopolists that they once were, and since that time, they were mostly shepherding the company. So you really haven't seen the breakout. So Ballmer did a good job, but the thing that Ballmer really screwed himself on was he missed search, okay? He missed a lot of growing markets that would redefine the company. He missed mobile. He called the iPhone, he said about the iPhone in 2007, oh, that'll never work. The touch screen and swiping. I mean, this is just the kind of reality he's living in. They've produced billions and billions of dollars of free cash flow. So to cannibalize their own, it's just a mindset. And Ballmer was just not the right guy for that to go forward. So to me, it's a good move that he kind of steps aside, and we do need new blood. The question is does experience matter?
Well, so Ballmer faced the classic innovator's dilemma, didn't he? I mean, he was taking over the ship at a very tumultuous time. And one measure of success is cash. Microsoft has over $70 billion on the balance sheet. It's got gobs and gobs and gobs of cash. So it can get into virtually any market that it wants. So despite the fact it failed in search, it's failed in mobile so far, et cetera, it's still got tons of money. And so, does experience matter? I think it does. I mean, I think it does to the point where if the person in charge is willing to try new things, and has a let's try it attitude, then experience is vital.
So I want to just put a plug out there for the folks watching. Go to crowdchat.net/VMworld. That is a live chat room that goes to Twitter, so it's like a tweet chat, but also works on LinkedIn, so log in with your LinkedIn handle. That's where the thought leaders are, a lot of good questions there. And post a question or comment, and then people will thread on either. If you want to reply to someone, make sure you reply to their thread. But Dave, there's a comment on there from Vsoft. Probably an anonymous handle. Big surprise, Cisco is absent as a technology partner in NSX. So obviously Cisco has an interest in networking, and with virtualization that's going to change their business. Big surprise? No surprise. Cisco is retooling, but here's the issue that we're talking about again with software. And this is going to be a fundamental philosophy, religion, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like the Democrats and the Republicans of technology. What do you believe in? I believe Cisco thinks that the software should be free and you charge for the hardware. That's an approach that I see Cisco taking, where others are saying, we'll give away the hardware and charge you for the software. Those are fundamentally different approaches, and this is going to be which one resonates. And I think, if you're Cisco, you're late to the party, you got to be disruptive. So I think, Cisco clearly might be looking from the outside in on this one, but has a few moves of their own that we're going to be watching.
Well, the person was right. There was absolutely no mention of Cisco in the whole networking discussion, and so that was sort of an obvious, I wouldn't say omission, but an obvious statement that VMware is making. But as I said before, it's taking the paradigm of compute virtualization and applying it directly to network virtualization. Martine gave a demo, a very simplified, conceptual demo. Really wasn't a technology demo, but it was what is NSX? And it's like ESX, except it's targeted at networking. As I said before, the storage is a bit more convoluted, and I don't know if that's because VMware is trying to preserve some of what David Furrier calls the cartel, or it's just because storage is so complex.
Okay, we're here live in San Francisco, Moscone South, so if you're at the event or you want to stop by later, we're at the hall, Moscone South, in the lobby. So you don't need a badge to come if you want to say hi to theCUBE, or if you want to have an opinion, go to crowdchat.net/VMworld and vote on the threads that you like, and we'll be taking comments and questions through CrowdChat. Also, folks that are thought leading in there might be room on theCUBE for commentating. I'm going to watch that and see what the crowd says, Dave. The votes will come in, they will rise to the top, and you can see the threaded conversations. Respond to threads that you like, or if you want to post a question or a comment or a particular thought leading position, log in with Twitter or LinkedIn and post it. Dave, in summary, what I'm looking for this trip, and I want to get your take, is where's VMware going? Okay, what are the other companies doing? What are the horses on the track? Who has the wind behind them? The shift is happening, the transformation debate is over, cloud is disrupting, IBM, HP, Microsoft, they're all kind of shifting. What's the ecosystem look like? Well, there is a massive reconfiguration going on in the industry, in the enterprise market, and we want to find out who's got the wind at their back, who's tacking their boats, where are their sails, and love to get your take on that.
Well, I think VMware is attacking from a position of strength. It's got momentum. It's a $5 billion company. As I said, it's got a $38 billion market cap. It's got 500,000 customers. There are 40 million virtual machines installed. That's an astounding statement about the loyalty to VMware. You go to any vMug and people absolutely love the technology. So they're coming from a position of strength, and they're going to use that to, one, shore up their core infrastructure business. They've got to keep the lead ahead of, in particular, Microsoft, but there are others, OpenStack, et cetera. It's going to embrace OpenStack, but it's got to maintain that lead in vSphere, that functional lead, and that's what VMware is going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money, and I think they will succeed in doing that. VMware is the dominant hypervisor today, and I think it will remain the dominant hypervisor for the next 3 to 4, for the foreseeable future. The second piece is cloud. The jury is still out on the whole vCloud hybrid piece of it. VMware has to prove that it can compete effectively with Amazon, that it can build with its ecosystem a comparable level of service, of simplicity to Amazon. Everybody pokes Amazon for SLAs. You know this, John. We've done a lot of these events. They poke Amazon for SLAs, they poke Amazon for security, but the fact is, Amazon's moving faster than anybody else in that marketplace. They got more function. They're focused on things like security and compliance and governance, and so it remains to be seen who can take those guys on. I mean, Gartner came out with a Magic Quadrant last week with cloud service providers, and you can see Amazon stands alone, according to Gartner, like no other Magic Quadrant you see, they extending their lead. So VMware's got a lot of work to do there, and I think similarly with end user computing. I think while there are some good proof points and some good examples, we need to see more.
Okay, we're here live at VMworld, and we're going to get all the data. Before we wrap up this intro, Dave, I want to ask you about the Wikibon research you guys put out. I mean, obviously, the surveys are a big part of what you do in getting the data and sharing that, folks, on the free research on wikibon.org. But you guys just did a study on the hypervisor, and Microsoft's growing significant. Where's KVM stand in all that? What's OpenStack look like? And obviously VMware as a leader. What's your findings from that research?
So the title of the piece was VMware dominant in multi-hypervisor environments. So you can just Google that in Wikibon. But basically what it was is a survey of Wikibon community members, as well as a refresh of the VMware integration study that we do every year. And here's what it showed. VMware is the dominant, everybody knows that. But when we look toward momentum, other hypervisors had momentum, but they're growing from a much, much smaller base. So even when you take that into consideration, VMware is well over 70% of the action today within the customer base, moving to, declining into the high 60s, okay? So it's still the dominant hypervisor as you look forward. Growth rates in VMware, 20, 25%, kind of tacking the company's growth of 15 to 20% overall. You're seeing others like Microsoft growing much, much faster, 50, 60%. The other significant piece there is you're starting to see mission critical applications really are becoming mainstream for VMware, not so much for other hypervisors. You're seeing a lot of VDI, a lot of desktop infrastructure for things like Hyper-V. That's really the only place where Citrix Zen seems to have any traction. And OpenStack obviously is an area that people are looking at. As I said before, about 15% of the customers are looking at OpenStack as sort of a viable option that they're going to pursue. You're seeing, as well, you're seeing KVM in the cloud service provider space. So to me, that's a big one for VMware, is can it attack the cloud service provider space with its homogeneous hypervisor strategy?
We've got a big day, wall-to-wall coverage. This is day one. We're going to try to maintain our pace and excitement. We're really excited for VMworld 2013 in San Francisco. Again, this is theCUBE, our flagship program. We go out to the events, extract the signal noise. I'm John Furrier, Dave Vellante. Got a great guest of lineups, all the top executives here, all the top companies, CEOs, startups, thought leaders here inside theCUBE. Stay with us all day, siliconangle.com or siliconangle.tv, and of course, try the new crowdchat.net/VMworld. And get your voice heard on there. We'll be going to that and taking comments and also highlighting the key voices that aren't here. If you want to be part of VMworld, go to crowdchat.net/VMworld. I'm John Furrier, Dave Vellante. We'll be right back with our next guest to kick off VMworld 2013 live in San Francisco. This is theCUBE. Be right back.